So we also want to be able to create our own fertility. Okay, so yeah, the plants, if we focus on our soil, okay, so the soil, if it's alive, if it's got all the microbiology, then the plants have this allegiance with the microbiology. So if we haven't got the microbiology there to start with, we need to inoculate. We need to bring in microbiology. And we can do this with things like compost teas. So if you've got access to, excuse me, if you have access to things like fresh cow manure, okay, then you can take a quantity of cow manure, you can put it in a bucket with water, and you can stir it 5 minutes each day for 3-4 days. And that will create a breeding ground for all the beneficial bacteria that you're going to find in the stomach of a cow, and it's going to increase the numbers of it. It's going to start with something quite dark, and we want something that looks more like a brown tea. So you'd actually then add more water to it to dilute it, and then literally you can pour that into your garden, and that will inoculate your soil with very beneficial microbiology that will increase the veracity of the plants. It will protect them from diseases and will generally give your garden a big old boost. So that's a very easy one you can do. You can also create your own composts. So again, what I'm doing here, because my neighbors have cows, I will go and collect cow poo. I will also collect dry leaves, and I've also got a lot of grass here, so I go and collect green grass. I chop it all up, so make it as small as possible, and I put it into one big pile. Okay, so you need at least a 1.5 meter high pile, or it's actually going to be 1 meter cube in volume if you've got like a square wire frame. If you're just piling it up, you want that top of the pile to be 1.5 meters in height, so that you're gaining that 1 meter cube of volume. And it's important to have that volume, because if it's got less, it's not going to get hot. And we want our compost to get hot. It's going to be a hot compost. The benefits of hot compost is it's going to kill pathogens, and it's going to kill weed seeds. Okay, so if we make sure our compost gets nice and hot, then we know we're not going to have problems with weeds or pathogens. If it doesn't get hot enough, then they could be an issue. So we get a third cow poo, a third cut green grass, and a third of the dry leaves, and we add water, so that if you take a handful of this stuff and you was to squeeze it, you get about 1 drop of water out of it. You mix that all together, and then to get it started, to activate it, you can either put your own urine into it, or you could, if you had a dead animal, small dead animal, you could put that in it, comfrey, or some old compost. And this is really to get it started. And the first 4 days you do nothing. 4 days later, from when you first put this compost together, you would come with your fork and you would turn it. So you would just literally move it from spot A to spot B. And that method of turning means you get air inside the compost. And that's meaning that this is going to be an aerobic process. That oxygen that gets in there allows things to burn, right? We know that oxygen is needed for a fire. So the same for an aerobic process with aerobic bacteria and fungi. They need air, they need oxygen. So every time we're turning it, the air is getting freshed in there. And we need to see if it's still wet, if not add more water. And we should start to see the temperature already after 4 days starting to increase. And you leave it for a day, and you come back on day 6 and you turn it again. Again, the temperature should be increasing. And you're going to turn it on day 8, day 10, day 12, day 14. Now maybe you're starting to see the temperature's peaked up and it's starting to decrease. Go to day 16, turn it again, day 18, last turn, okay? Now you should just let it sit. Let it sit until there's no heat left in it, okay? It may take a little longer, It really depends on, even on a very cold day, a compost will produce enough heat that it won't freeze. Quite the opposite, it will be steaming away. So even in quite cold winters, you should be pretty good to do a compost. And that's just one way you could do a compost. There's other ways, like for example, like you've got the lasagna compost where you do a green, brown. And this green refers to the nitrogen layer, and the carbon is the brown layer, because with a compost we're looking to balance carbon to nitrogen, so carbon about 20 parts and nitrogen 1 part. So for example, our own urine is a good fertilizer. However, we've got so much nitrogen, it's about 1-to-1 carbon to nitrogen, so it's got almost 20 times too much nitrogen at its current level, that we need to dilute it. If not, when we pee on something, like a small plant, something too much of a good thing, it can actually burn that plant. So we need to dilute it with water to reduce that level. But when we're doing a compost, we're adding carbon. So like when I said about the brown leaves, they're high in carbon, low in nitrogen. And so they get, that mixture of these 3 ingredients gives us that perfect balance we're looking for, about 20-to-1 of carbon to nitrogen. Okay, so that's some easy ways that we can produce compost, that we can start to incorporate that compost into our soil and into our gardens, and really start to see the benefits of feeding our soil that will feed our plants.